Hello and welcome to Lost in Sci-Fi and Fantasy. I'm your host Leo, and today we are talking Ewoks for this fabulous Star Wars day. Now, originally I was going to do Alphabet Squadron with Squadron's footage in the background, but I wasn't able to finish the third book in time, so I had to pivot. So, because I was watching Ewoks at the time, I figured, why not go ahead and do that? Now, Ewoks is a very fascinating series of things, as the first thing came out about a year after Return of the Jedi, and then about at the same-ish time is when the TV show started running as these two movies went out. Ewoks were a weird focus point for Lucasfilm. I can see why they did it, but at the same time, I don't know why they committed to it. So, what is an Ewok, for those who don't know? Ewoks are the fuzzy little guys who help the rebels take down the shield generator on the forest moon of Endor in Return of the Jedi. And for the most part, they were there just to be kind of cutesy little creatures that the kids could glom onto. You get the merchandise, as it was for everything in the 80s. It was merchandise. So what happens when you create a very marketable thing? You continue pumping out stuff related to it so that you can continue to earn money off of it. Now, the Ewoks were a fairly criticized thing when they were added to Return of the Jedi. People thought that they were trying to tone things down. They thought that they were trying to... It was a very obvious marketing ploy. That you couldn't make these weird little teddy bear things serious. Now, of course, with everything Star Wars, time brings appreciation. And overall, the Ewoks nowadays are seen as silly, sure, but overall, pretty fun. Now, at the time, even though they were criticized as being very obviously a marketing ploy, Lucasfilm did go through with two TV movies and an animated series. And for the most part, they aren't the worst thing. The movies consist of Caravan of Courage and The Battle for Endor, and then the TV show, Ewoks, is just that. It's an animated TV show about the Ewoks. We will be going through these in the order that they released, so starting with Caravan of Courage, going to the Battle of Endor, and then we'll do the Ewoks TV series. My biggest complaint about these things is missed potential, and my biggest compliment, at least for some of these, is surprisingly decent budget. That's kind of it. So let us go ahead and start breaking some things down. Now, obviously, for Caravan of Courage, they decided to go in for the low-budget feel. Very obviously, they're just hanging out in the woods. It's a very simple plot, and it gets resolved fairly easily with barely anything really going on. The Caravan of Courage follows a family who have crash-landed on the forest moon of Endor. They've been stuck there for a little bit, but the parents, while looking for the kids who decided to wander off for some reason, are kidnapped by some giant being. The kids then return to the ship and wait, hoping that their parents will return soon, to eventually be discovered by the Ewoks. Now, in this film, because the Ewoks don't speak Galactic Basic or English, there's a narrator that kind of comes in every so often when there's only Ewoks on the screen to kind of sum up what's going on. Now, the main reason that the Ewoks were out was that Wicket's father was looking for his brothers, I believe, and then they just kind of stumble upon the kids. Now, the kids consist of a little girl and a older boy. I don't fully remember their names at the moment, because I will admit that a lot of the names and whatnot, save for one, maybe, are mostly forgettable. The kids are then taken in by the Ewoks. The older brother is very standoffish and grumpy and a bit of a dick. Classic 80s teenage boy. Well, the little girl isn't really all that active at the moment because she's sick. So the first little bit of the film is them kind of trying to get her medicine. So like the Ewoks give her a little bit of medicine and she starts feeling a little bit better. Then they give her, well, then they run out of medicine, so they have to go get more. Then when she's finally feeling better and ready to do stuff, they initially plan on just kind of setting out on their own, mostly just going back to their ship. And they sneak out in the middle of the night, only to get stuck in like a log and attacked by a wolf-like creature. When the wolf-like creature kind of fucks off, the Ewoks hunt it and kill it and save them. They then decide to continue hanging out with the Ewoks. After they tell the Ewoks about what happened, and because on the dog thing, there is this life monitor. So the kids each have a life monitor thing, and their parents also have it. The life monitor is just kind of a device to say, hey, that the other people that I'm with are alive. It's a bit of a weird plot device, but it works, I guess. But when they see this, they're like, okay, where's this creature from? Where are our parents and whatnot? So they go to Logray, who is the shaman Ewok. And he is able to show them that their parents are being held in this cave by this monster. And then the dad doesn't look like he's doing too good, but they are there. So it is now time to form the titular Caravan of Courage. What the Caravan of Courage is they do a little ritual where they're each given a unique item that will become helpful on their journey. Wicket's given a magic stick. Someone else is given feathers. The boy gets a rock. I can't remember what the girl gets, but he's disappointed in the rock and whatnot, so he just kind of drops the rock shortly after they start leaving. There's also 2 items that they must give to Ewoks they find along the way and convince them to join in on the journey. And so they set off on their journey. He dumps the rocks almost immediately, and Wicket picks it up and sticks it in his pocket. And they journey along. And literally their entire journey is they come across an Ewok, help them do a very small task, they join and take the item. Rinse and repeat twice. And then they continue on their journey to the cave. They get to the cave after this journey. Along the way, so the main things were that they went along, got the 2 Ewoks, and then occasionally they would stop to use an item that they had to use. So, for example, the boy gets teleported into a lake for some reason. And everything they try to do to like stick something into the water to get him out doesn't work, because it's like there's a weird sheet of ice, but there isn't. So Wicket has to use his magic stick to pull the boy out. It's a weird situation. But anyway, they get to the cave eventually to rescue the parents, and they confront the monster. The rock is needed to get into the cave, and the boy's like, I left the rock. But then Wicket just comes and is like, nah, I got it. And then so he smashes the rock. Inside's like this arrowhead that like leads them to the entrance of the cave. It's weird. Anyhow, they get there, they get their parents, they fight the monster. One of the Ewoks that they got along the way dies. It's sad, I guess. But the family's reunited, and that's pretty much the end of that film. Some additional context real quick. These movies and the Ewok TV series are set like about a year or so before the actual Battle of Endor. And that's an interesting context because it brings up a lot of questions. For example, in this first movie, because it does follow Wicket and his village, they've very obviously interacted with people before. But in the movie, it's as if they hadn't. So that's a bit of a confusing thing. It gets even more confusing in the next film. So the next film is Ewoks: The Battle for Endor. It picks up about 6 months or so after the previous film. And things are going fine. They're almost done rebuilding their ship. They're getting ready to leave, finally, when an attack happens. These creatures just attack for no apparent reason. And we follow the little girl as she's wandering around the village during this attack, and she comes across her brother and her mom, dead, on the ground. The brother then, shoos her away to go to her dad, and he takes her mom into a hut that then explodes, killing him, too. Then she goes to her dad, who is being confronted by the leaders of this weird little group that's attacking them, called Marauders. They're called like the Sardianian Marauders or something like that. It's weird. But it consists of this old Skeletor looking dude and this witch, who, when I did some research, was retconned into being a night witch who had stolen a magic ring and gone to Endor, ended up on Endor for some reason, and was helping the Marauders, who also ended up on Endor for some reason, but had forgotten that they had been on ships. We'll get to that later. It's weird. Anyway, they're bugging the dad about power. The power. Give me the power. And they talk to him as if they've discussed this before. This is a plot line that doesn't get picked up and isn't continued at all. So it's very confusing when they're talking to him as if he should know what the hell they're talking about. And he's just like, what? What? I have no clue what the hell you're talking about. And then they rip out the power of the ship. And they're like, this. And he's like, what? Okay. Sees his daughter, starts attacking the Marauders, flees, gets shot in the back, but continues on. Scoops her up, and they go to hide. The lady turns into a raven and follows. And he's talking to his daughter saying, hey, you're going to have to go and get out of here. Go to the Ewoks. They'll help you. I'll always be with you. I'm going to hold them off. So she runs. He holds them off as long as he can, and then he also dies. Her entire family, within the first 8 minutes of the goddamn film, first 8 to 10 minutes, dead. Gone. Murdered. And I was like, holy shit. This is such a dark opening for this film. And then it takes that energy and then shoots it in the face. And it's like, now it's going to get a little silly and weird and kind of heartwarming, but it's going to kind of miss the mark. So the Marauders take most of the Ewoks. So it's just her and Wicket. They're wandering through the woods when they come across this little creature guy who's super fast. They help him out, and he leads them back to this little hut thing. And in the hut thing, they come across this old man. This old man is named Noah. He's a curmudgeon. He's a grumpy guts. He's an old man tsundere. It's very weird because it's a situation where he keeps pushing them away, yelling at them, telling them to get the fuck out, that he doesn't want them around, but then he subtly hints to his little friend, hey, don't take the food out to them, fully intending for his little guy to take them food. And then he, after he lets them stay the night, he's like, hey, because they set a fire outside to keep warm, and he goes up to them, puts out their fire, and he's like, what the fuck are you trying to do? You want to burn down the entire forest moon? What are you doing? And he's like, if you're going to do that, do it in a stove. And he takes him back to do it and to build a little fire in his stove. Then, the next day, he's like, okay, fuck off. I don't want you around. I did my bit. I helped you. Now go. And then he leaves, and they're like, yeah, we need to probably go try to save the other Ewoks and whatnot. So they venture out. And then he comes back and starts yelling for them to come downstairs, expecting them to still be there. But the little guy goes nah, man, they're gone. And he's like, well, good riddance. I didn't want them here anyway. And he starts rambling on and on. Then they come back, having gone out and picked berries. And of course, he's quite happy that they actually came back. Though he hides it. They're like, hey, we picked berries, we can have pie. So they have pie, and they hang out, and they you know, whatnot. And he had made them beds to sleep on because they were sleeping on the floor before, and she had a nightmare about her family getting fucking murdered and the marauders coming after her. But yeah, he's trying to make it more comfortable for them. Then the next day he's like, okay, if you're going to stay here, you're going to have to upkeep. You're going to do the dishes. You're going to clean the hut. You're going to make sure things are nice and tidy. I'm going to go out. I'll be back. And they're like, I wonder what he goes to do. So they follow him like no more than like 100 feet behind him, and he somehow doesn't notice, save for the one time that they break a twig, and he's like, huh? Must have been the wind, and continues on. So they continue on following him to see that he has a spaceship. Wicket gets caught in a classic snare trap. He's like, you guys shouldn't have come out here. It's much more dangerous than this. Like, I have a ton of weird shit around this place that could kill you. You shouldn't have come out here. But then he lets them onto the ship and explains some things. So he's been there for he doesn't know how long. Him and his friend had set out on an adventure just to, on their first mission, crash land on the forest moon of Endor. His friend went out to try to find a replacement power source for their ship and never returned. So he's just been kind of hanging out. He has long since accepted that his friend is dead. They go back, they kind of have a weird party and whatnot. They're hanging out, telling stories. And she explains that, because she's like, hey, do you think that your friend's dead? And he's like, oh yeah, by now he's almost certainly dead. And she's like, oh, well, that's sad. Well, my family's dead, and that makes me sad. And he's like, damn, kid. Fucking brutal. She tells a story about how her mom sang her a song that she loved, and she's using that to remember her mom by, and her dad told her to remember him, and the old man's like, yeah, as long as you remember what he said there and remember many of the other things he said, you will, accept what's going on. In the middle of the night, she hears that song and follows it to find this lady in the woods. Now, Wicket, as she's leaving, notices that she's missing, wakes up the guy, and is like, hey, she's gone. So let's go. Oh, that's the other thing I should probably mention. In this one, they don't have the narrator anymore, so they just have Wicket talk, like, fully. Well, not fully, but he talks in, like, short phrases to be able to get what he needs to say across. So he'd be like, she's gone. Like, or wake up. But, yeah, so they start hunting her down. She gets kidnapped by the witch lady, who was like this weird... She's pretending to be like this weird magical fairy with a white horse in the woods. Very odd. Then she reveals, no, I'm the witch. Come with me. Because the marauders sent the witch out to find her because they don't know how to use the power source. They don't know how to turn the power into power. So they need the little girl to show how to use the power. So they kidnap her, take her to the marauders, and when they put her in front of the leader guy, he's like, okay, I'll set the Ewoks free, and everything, if you show me how to use the power. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, how do you use this? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, fine, you have 24 hours. Figure it out, or I kill you. And he sends her and the witch off to be locked up. Now, as she's there, the witch is like, yeah, you just have to tell him how to use it. How you get the power out of it. And she's like, I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about. You just plug it in. It's a battery, essentially. And the lady's like, no, that's not it. And she's like, no, that's what it is. You use it to power, like, spaceships and whatnot. And she's like, there must be another ship. Weird-ass leap of logic, but sure. Noah, Wicket, and the other little speedy guy, they break into the Marauders' hideout and work their way through, free the other Ewoks, free her. They escape and are then chased by the Marauders because it's like, oh, they have a ship and whatnot and the power. So they go, There's an actual like battle. It's decent, and it culminates in a duel because the main marauder gets a hold of her and is like, "Hey, it's the little girl or the power. You decide. If you don't give me the power, she dies." And he's like, the old man's like, "Fine." He sets the power source down and is like, "Okay, you let her go, and then you fight me for it." And the marauder's like, "Yeah, that works." Lets her go. She fucks off, and then the old man just stands there as the main marauder comes and slowly goes to grab the thing, and then he starts beating him up with his walking stick. And they have a sword fight with him using his walking stick and whatnot. And as he's about to get killed, because he's fighting a dude with a sword with a stick, Wicket shoots a rock at the marauder. He has the ring of the witch that she uses to transform into a bird, and he had her transformed into a bird to find them. And the rock hits that ring, and it like overpowers him, burning him to death and turning him to stone? Question mark. So she's now stuck as a bird, and he is a rock. Now the ring technically is still accessible. It's just in his hand, and he is either made of ash, which I don't think he is. I think he's actually made of stone, so the ring is forever stuck in his hand. But yeah, so then they go put the power source back into the ship, and her and Noah fly off into space. She's been rescued. It's a very weird film. Very dark opening. Overall, between the two, I found Caravan of Courage to be, a decently fun, your standard, like, 80s kids movie fare. And then Ewoks Battle for Endor had potential to be better, because it did decide to go into that crazy dark thing. But then it spends like a good third of its runtime just being them walking through the woods. So many scenes are them walking through fields and walking through woods that I can't say that it's much better. I do appreciate that they were like, we don't want a narrator popping in every so often to like explain what Wicket's saying, so we'll just have him kind of speak, which works overall. It does bring in a massive loophole since this is technically set like half a year or so before the Battle of Endor. Why does Wicket forget how to speak? It's a very odd choice, to be honest. Also, another weird choice is that I think it's just mostly due to budget issues and whatnot. They moved the Ewok houses from in the trees in the first film, and they also have all the distinct-ish Ewoks in the first film. They move it to the ground, and then they get rid of the distinct Ewoks. So, you don't see Logray, you don't see any of this stuff, because technically they need to still be alive and well for the next film. So it's as if Wicket decided to do a separate, smaller village on the ground that gets attacked by the Marauders, and everyone who decided to join him on the ground gets fucking kidnapped. It's weird. But anywho, those are the two Ewok movies. And I would say that, they're worth at least one watch as a Star Wars fan. You don't need to keep going back to it or anything like that, but it's decently-ish worth a watch. What I do find hilarious is the cover for the second film is so misleading. So the art for the second film has the main villain in the background with his sword. Then you have Noah's friend, the little speedy guy. You've got the weird lizard monster thing that the Marauders like to ride. Then you have Wicket, the little girl, and then some random ass dude in the middle. Like, front and center is just a guy. It might be her dad, who dies again within the first 10 minutes, or it might be an original thing for what Noah was supposed to look like. Very odd. There's also a very weird thing that as they're getting ready to escape the castle, because, there's a fucking castle, she is like, "Hey, sorry about your friend." And Noah's like, "What?" And she points to a skeleton in the corner, which I could have swore was supposed to be like rooms away. And she's like, "Yeah, he died. Sorry." And he's like, "Yeah, I kind of figured. Guess good to know that it was here? Sure." And then they leave. Odd situation. It's interesting. Overall, I would say it's interesting. Now, the Ewoks TV series. The Ewoks TV series, I'm going to split into two parts. Just as it is anyway. There's season 1 and then there's season 2. It's a 2-season show. Each has 13 episodes, and overall, the show's fine. Definitely a kid's show and whatnot. It's mostly like situation of the week things. I am willing to compare the first season to just about any general kids show from the 80s. It's very similar to like DuckTales or Darkwing Duck or Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. It's very similar along those lines until the second season. At the second season, I feel that it gets much worse. But we'll go ahead and discuss that in a moment. Now, season 1 is fairly straightforward. It is, like I said, situation of the week, but you feel a progress is happening throughout the season as more and more situations are kind of, like, characters are introduced and more situations are followed through with. So you have the thing that probably most of the like references from this series come from. The very first episode introduces like the Wispies and them burning down the forest, and it's them just trying to stop that situation. Then the next episode, they're trying to protect their sunberry trees using this invisibility soap. Very standard kind of cartoony fare, and overall, pretty fun. The villains that are introduced are Morag and the Dulocs. Those are the main two villains. The Dulocs are an entire group of people that hang out in the swamps. And some of their main motivations is that they want the bug repellent soap that the Ewoks have, or they want the food that the Ewoks have, or they just want to be able to hunt. It's a weird thing. They look like a little village of Grinches, which I found hilarious. And I kind of want to see more to do with them. And then you have Morag, who is kind of this TV series' Skeletor / Hordak, a person who's trying to manipulate things behind the scenes and occasionally actually interacts with the main group of heroes, but for the most part is kind of a behind-the-scenes character. Heck, in the second episode, they mentioned that she's sending these birds to steal their sunberry trees, and she doesn't do it until the very end of the episode. So they're just like, she's just kind of there and gets kind of angry at the end, and that's about it. Now, I feel that they didn't think that they were going to get a second season. I feel this because they decided to introduce and then fairly quickly wrap up plot lines. For example, the very first one that they kind of introduce is Ubel or Mring Mring, one of those two. Basically,